matters. So for many of you that are members here, except Molly, but it's okay. We always love to have people from the community come in and get involved. One of the recommendations that we even have on the lifestyle habits is sleep. And it's one of the things that we don't realize how much it impacts our lives in general. Because when everybody is underslept and everybody feels tired and anxious and stressed, it becomes normal to have that same feeling amongst your fellow humans, your fellow people at work. You're like, I didn't get any sleep last night. So one of the things that I want to do this new year was make an effort with you all is to have more seminars, and one a month. And the first one I thought that we could kick it off with was sleep. So do we know some things about sleep in general? I mean, you can throw it out there. You can tell me, yeah, I'll sleep when I'm dead. I mean, you will die, but sleep will probably cause that. But anybody have any ideas on sleep or anything that they'd like to share?
I love sleep.
Okay, good.
Yeah, me
Good.
too, if I could get some.
Yeah, well, if I could get some, so yeah. Do we feel perpetually underslept?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right, so now I'm preaching to the choir. Let's just get out of here and go sleep. All right, so with that said, so I have a rough outline here, and I say rough because there's also a lot of other things that I'm going to be talking about, but I'm going to talk about the current state of sleep, benefits of sleep, why sleep, suprachiasmatic, we'll learn that as a word of the day going forward. Owls versus larks, melatonin, caffeine, how much you bench, sleep. That's a joke on people. Everybody's like, how much you bench? And different sleep patterns. Then I'll talk a little bit about teenagers and sleep. As we age, what happens when we sleep, or can't sleep, rather. So, any questions before we start? Thanks, David. All right, so the state of things, sleep, okay? Might be a little difficult to see. Sorry, I don't have two screens up because of the computer. 2 out of 3 adults throughout all developed nations fail to obtain the recommended 8 hours of nightly sleep. So the World Health Organization actually has called sleep. The World Health Organization, so you told me to raise my voice. The World Health Organization has declared sleep, or lack thereof, an epidemic. So similar to other states of cognitive dysfunction, heart disease, etc. So it's right up there. It's not something that should be overlooked any longer. Routinely sleeping less than 6 or 7 hours a night demolishes your immune system, more than doubling your risk of cancer. And if you don't believe me, I'll just cite. I'll show you in a little bit, but I linked Google Scholar, so you can all do this at home. I typed up sleep and weight gain. There was 1.5 million articles on it. So just let that sink in. Insufficient sleep is a key lifestyle factor determining whether or not you will develop Alzheimer's disease. Okay, there's plenty of different dementia type diseases. Alzheimer's just happens to be one of them. Inadequate sleep disrupts blood sugar levels so profoundly that you would be classified as pre-diabetic from one night. Sleep disruption further contributes to all major psychiatric conditions, including depression, anxiety, and suicidality. And then too little sleep swells concentrations of a hormone that makes you feel hungry, while suppressing a companion hormone that makes you satiated. So, sleep is pretty wild, right? Do you guys want to go to sleep now? All right, so an epidemic, just like I said. So sleep accounts for 1/3 of our life, okay? When you think about that fact in and of itself, there seems to be a huge misconception about sleep, right? We spend two-thirds of our life waking, we're in a wake state, and then 1/3 of our life sleeping. So if we're spending 1/3 of our life, just as a thought experiment, you guys can just think about it. Would I not think that this is essential for life, right? But we seldom look at it as something we need to be doing. We look at it as something that's like, I gotta go to sleep. It's like, do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah? Or not? You guys like? No.
Something that is taking away from our awake time.
So we always think of sleep like something we have to do, but it's really something you evolved to do, right? There's a lot of research out there that suggests humans in general actually woke up. We didn't actually start sleeping. So this might sound a little weird, but we actually woke up from a sleep state and then became bipedal and started walking. We didn't actually walk first and then say we need to sleep. So nature actually allowed us to wake up. So when we think about all the things that sleep allows us to do, it's mind-boggling all the things that it does positively, and the things that it does negatively are just as great. Anyway, so vehicular accidents attributed to fatigue exceed those caused by alcohol and drugs combined. So we always talk about like drunk driving. It's like, yeah, but majority of the people are actually fatigued. They're underslept, right? They're coming back from work. Yeah, just a quote underneath. If sleep does not serve an absolutely vital function, then it's biggest mistake. It is the biggest mistake the evolutionary process has ever made. I just got really serious. So why we sleep versus what sleep does? Well, sleep enhances the ability to learn, memorize, make logical decisions and choices. They've done numerous amounts of research on this, as far as choice making with food, things like that, cognition, memory. The less we sleep, the less likely we are to make better choices. Benevolently servicing our psychological health, just spoke about it earlier with anxiety, depression, mental disorders. Sleep recalibrates our emotional health. Dreams provide a neurochemical bath that mollifies painful memories and a space to bend time, inspiring creativity. So the time that you spend dreaming is a good time to think about all the thoughts that you've had either over the coming days or days in the past that actually helps you feel better about certain emotions that may be dragging you down. Sleep restores our immune system, preventing infections, so you're more likely actually to get sick when you are lacking sleep. And then when you get sick, what happens? You don't sleep. See how the correlation is right there? It's like, I can't sleep, I've been getting sick. Now I'm sick, I can't sleep. Absolutely, it goes hand in hand. Sleep balances insulin, circulating glucose, regulates appetite, controls body weight, improves gut microbiome, and lowers blood pressure. Damn. Put that in a pill and take that, which I'm going to talk about. So now we are forced to wonder whether there are any biological functions that do not benefit from a good night's of sleep. So, why do we sleep? Anybody guess? Don't worry, one second. I would prefer if you guys just like, I don't know. Why do you think we sleep, Mike?
Biological.
Okay, yeah, definitely. Maggie?
Somebody said so.
Yeah, coach said so.
I got to support our awake state.
That's an interesting one. I would say we don't, but that's what most people think.
Okay.
Which is not a bad thing.
Because we're tired.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So we sleep for a couple different reasons. So Z said to biologically, yes, we're tired, yes. To support the waking, oh yeah.
For memories, obviously?
Yes, so that's a good thing. So we're all getting at the fact of what sleep does and what it might support. Like sleep supports the waking state, which I think you were getting after. The waking state doesn't support the sleeping state. Does that make sense? So when you sleep, it has a direct relationship between you performing tasks in the day. When you perform tasks in the day, exercise, hydrating, not hydrating, that just destroys sleep. It really does. So if you don't sleep and you're doing all these things during the day, well, you're just limiting the ability of yourself to sleep. But if you are sleeping good, it gives you that ability to do that. Does that make sense? But memory, yes, gets calibrated. We're tired, which I'm going to talk about. So we sleep for a couple different things. We have, I called it clocks and chemicals. Okay? So circadian rhythm, and Z, keep me on point with time.
Yep.
Okay? Because I could talk about this for 3 hours. Circadian rhythm, okay? Everybody's heard of circadian rhythm or no? Circa meaning around and DM meaning day. Rhythm, all life on Earth spanning more than several days generate this natural cycle. I forget which species is like around for only 7 days, and even they develop a circadian rhythm. Children, babies start to develop circadian rhythm around the ages of 4 to 7. Teenagers develop their own circadian rhythm upwards of 19, and then once you hit adulthood, you're in the same rhythm that most of us are in now. So what I thought was so interesting, I used to believe that sleep was a function of our sun, the way in which we operate in relationship to the sun. It is and it isn't. So I pulled up a thing on here. Let's see if it. So does anybody know what heliotropism? And you can't answer because maybe marine science. Heliotropism. Let me see if it is helio, sun. Let's see if it comes up. Z, how will this make? How will I make this come up?
What
I want to show
I'm a technician over here.
with the.
I don't know if that's actually gonna hold.
Can I exit out of this thing? Oh wait. What?
YouTube TV. Try it free.
Add for YouTube. Second. Well, you know what? If we can, I'm just gonna hold it like this. Oh, there you go. So, I'm just gonna speed this up. Okay. I just want to show you guys this. So, does anybody know what like sunflowers do? Yeah? Okay, so that's called heliotropism. So, I used to think that sleep evolved just like we do around the sun, right? For instance, that when the sun comes up, right? So you can see it starting to go around the sun, right? It moves in relationship to the sun, and then back for the next day. So I used to think that's the way in which we work, but in fact, it is and it isn't, because the research that I cited right underneath there was Kleitner and Richardson. So I forget their names, but back in the 80s, they were trying to figure this out. Do we have sleep similar to plants? Meaning, do we, wake up because of the sun and sleep? Well, they actually put themselves in a cave 250 feet below the ground, and there was no sun at all. I would never do that, but they were doing it in their, for research. And what they discovered, they brought down their, it's going to come on. They brought down their temperature gauges, I think like EEGs, which are electroencephalography graphs, and they showed that their temperature, went down, and they actually felt tired at the exact same time as if we were in the sun. So what happens is, throughout time, we actually develop our own circadian rhythm, and it starts to lead into life, whether or not it's dark or bright out. So I thought that was interesting, that even if we were in a place that's dark, or not realm bright, take like a country like or a place like Alaska where it's bright for a certain portion of the year, we still actually feel the need to sleep. So we're tired, right? Kleitman and Richardson. So what's interesting too is that the way in which we see light too affects our sleep. So it does affect us and it doesn't affect us, because we still have this chemical, which I'll talk about, that starts to increase in the brain, making us want to sleep. Have I lost you guys yet? Okay. So the clocks, right? Suprachiasmatic nucleus. Okay, supra means above, chiasm means crossing point. The crossing point is your optic nerve. Those nerves meet in the middle of your brain, back here, and the suprachiasmatic nucleus is located above it. This is the central conductor of life's biological activity, okay? So, when we have light that comes in, it tells us that it's bright out, that, our cortisol level should be raising, our energy should be increasing, right? When light starts to dim, okay, you see light here, our pineal gland releases a chemical, which I'll talk about. Many of you know it in the form of, starts with an M. Yes, melatonin, okay? So, So one of our chemicals, or clocks, again, we're on here, is the messenger of melatonin, which tells us that we're going to sleep. Okay? A lot of us believe that melatonin is this miracle that allows us to sleep, but it's just a messenger. Okay? So melatonin supplementation has been in the form of prescription or supplements, has been underestimated by 83% of the amount that's actually in the supplement, and overestimated up to 478%. So what that means is you go to the store, you buy melatonin, and it says 30 grams of melatonin in it, and it could be 83% less than that, or over exaggerated 478%. And they've done tons of research on this. But melatonin actually has no influence on your sleep. So the way in which you should think about melatonin, or your body thinks about melatonin, is you're in a race, a 100-meter race. Okay? The track is sleep. Melatonin is the announcer. So it does not make you run the race. It just tells you 3, 2, 1, go. And you're like, but I'm not going. Because you're not obviously getting into sleep, and melatonin might not be uptake or being uptaken as much. It's released at night from the pineal gland to the bloodstream, and again, we still suffer from lack of sleep or fragmentation even though we take melatonin supplements. So, why sleep? Chemicals, okay? So David said we're tired. So there's another chemical called adenosine, okay? Adenosine is referred as like a sleep pressure. So if you think about your head, right, there's actual sleep pressure that starts to increase in the brain, causing us to want to sleep, right? So it occurs after 12 to 16 hours of wakefulness. Caffeine artificially mutes adenosine by blocking and inactivating the adenosine receptors. So what caffeine actually does is very interesting. Caffeine will actually block. So if you think about this as your receptor for adenosine, caffeine goes like this and says, guess what, you aren't going to sleep. Okay? But caffeine has a half-life of 5 to 7 hours. That's why we talk about even here, hey, when you're having coffee, yeah, it's better to have it probably in the morning or not have it, because it's when 5 to 7 hours pass, there's still half of the milligrams of caffeine left in your bloodstream, still blocking your full adenosine reception. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah, it's removed from an enzyme, cytochrome, efficient enzymatic process, and it's either efficient or inefficient as you age. So it might even take longer. It might take 8 hours for you to remove caffeine out of the bloodstream. I thought this was interesting. So they gave injected spiders with LSD, marijuana, caffeine, speed, and a normal day of spider webs. And can you make out anything what they did when they were on caffeine? Right? It's crazy. But we take it like it's I guess it is a drug, yeah. So everyone has a circular semblance of a web. When it's on caffeine, it's like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
So you're trying to say I should do LSD instead of caffeine?
That's what
I think that's exactly what I'm saying. I don't know. Marijuana might be the best one on there. Anyway, so clocks and chemicals. So now we put them together, okay? So we have our circadian rhythm. Okay, this is process C. Okay, 7 a.m. Okay, 11 p.m., 7 a.m., 11 p.m., 7 a.m. Okay, and now process S is adenosine. So you can see when we want to sleep is when that delta, or the difference between the two, is greatest. Okay, so have you guys ever pulled all-nighters or anything like that? Yeah. Okay. So when you get to that third or second night, I don't know how you can do 3 nights. You are literally at the point where adenosine will continue to increase. But what happens, interestingly enough, is when you're trying to pull an all-nighter, and you're like, oh my God, I'm so tired, and you get past that hump, guess what happens? Your circadian rhythm starts to kick back in, and then the delta is not as great, so you don't feel as tired until a lull again, okay? Then you're gonna feel even more tired. Now we consistently think that we can make up for sleep debt. Sleep is not like a bank account where you put $1,000 in, you take $1,000 or $1,500 out, and you're like, oh, I overdrafted, I'm just gonna put $500 in. You do not get the sleep back, and the effects of it are lasting forever. So with that said, when you do go into sleep debt, you're going to feel the effects of it right away, and you can't make up for that time lost. Yeah, so, go back for a second. So, owls versus larks, okay? Interestingly enough, these are called chronotypes, okay? These are usually genetic, and they call it Zeitgeiger, which means environmental, or things that are associated with sleep. So, people, how many define themselves as larks, which are morning? Okay. And how many define themselves as night owls? Okay. Yeah, and your parents night owls, or no? Or just because of work, or do you feel better at night? I'm just trying to get a feel.
I feel better at night for
Okay.
some reason.
I mean, I feel better in the morning, but I don't like to go to sleep.
Okay.
I think my dad is right now.
Okay. I know Z was a night owl from school, but she's not raising her hand now.
Yes, it's just like it's difficult for me to get rid of the energy that I have.
Okay. Oh, yes, that's an interesting one.
that's
Yeah,
what it is.
that's like called like a
After
wired,
work.
a wired and tired and wired. So with that said, who do you think suffer more consequences? Yeah, night owls. So again, it's a chronotype, but it's also environment dependent as well. Meaning, if you have work to be done at the middle of night, Z would have her classes scheduled always in the evening. Yeah, it's going to make your brain actually activated at that point where you should be getting into sleep.
It's the way school puts schedule. Trust me, I would
so
rather.
that's another thing. I mean, and jobs themselves too, right? If you're working overnight shifts, yeah, you got to be forced to be a night owl, I guess. But with that said, it's a chronotype and it deserves discussion. So 30% of the population is owls, 40% population are larks, 30% are mixed. Owls are offline prefrontal cortex in the morning. Okay, so that's an interesting one. So you guys are functioning like zombies in the morning. Prefrontal cortex is responsible for decision making. We'll just leave it at that. With that goes the need for caffeine, the need for more sleep, and we define this type of person as lazy, right? But when in fact their chronotype is, based on them actually sleeping until maybe 12, and they're getting up for work at 6. Yeah, so they're more sleep deprived, they're higher rate of depression, anxiety, diabetes, cancer, heart attack, and stroke. So I wrote chronotype or Zeitgebers, yeah. So Zeitgebers are the environment. So if we're going to bed at a point that's 3 o'clock in the morning, and you feel tired in the day, are you really a night owl, or do you suffer from insomnia, or are you trying to get, or are you just a result of the biology that you have, meaning maybe if I went to bed earlier, I would feel better in the morning and get up earlier and not have my prefrontal cortex offline. Okay, so have plane will travel. So I thought this was just an interesting aside. Anybody know anybody who's not air traffic controller, flight attendant? I know Mike does. Yeah. So air traffic, not air traffic. Flight attendants will have a significantly diminished prefrontal cortex from work. Significantly. I think that's.
Pilots too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Anybody who's flying, why? Change of time zone and change of sleep. So not only are they not sleeping during the flight, if it's a 15-hour flight, let's say, and they're changing time zones, they will be doing that for years and years and years and suffer the consequences as a result. So airplane cabin crew shrinking prefrontal cortex and short-term memory impairment. So when you're sleeping, non-rapid eye movement sleep, which we'll talk about, enhances memory and enhances cognitive learning ability. Shift workers include higher rates of cancer and type 2 diabetes as well. So if you're a shift worker and you're working overnight, you're definitely going to have all the associated risks with that. So how much you bench, how much you sleep. That is Eric's photo. I think he had the world's strongest bench, and then he fell off the face of the earth. I think he's still alive. I just don't know where he is. I think that's like 800 pounds.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and that's raw. So this is a little aside. Raw meaning he didn't have. They would normally wear like bench shirts that help you press the weight up. It's almost like wearing like sleeves around the knees. So this guy bench pressed like a small car. It's crazy. And then I don't know who that is, but he's sleeping. So how much does everybody sleep here on average? 5 hours? Who sleeps 5? Maybe 4? 6?
I sleep 9.
I do that 6.
I know she
That
does.
between
'Cause
9 and 9. And I go,
7?
wow.
Okay, 8? I know you sleep
I
at
just
7.
don't-
All right, so
10?
2 questions.
11?
2 questions, right? When you are thinking about your sleep, again, a lot of this should come off as you thinking about this and you empowering yourselves with this information. I'm not here to tell you what to be doing. I'm here to tell you what you should be thinking about, perhaps, in your search for wellness, health, etc. Can you fall asleep at 10? And if the answer is yes, then you're probably not getting enough sleep.
10 a.m. Right.
Yeah, yeah. Can you function without coffee before 12? If the answer again is no, you're probably not getting enough sleep. And I know that might sound counterintuitive, but I talked about it last time at our habit seminar. It's like, if you wake up in the morning and you're groggy and tired and then you reach for the coffee and you feel better, think about the process that you're going into why you're feeling groggy in the first place, that you need to get the coffee to feel, awake. So those are questions that you can think about as regard to sleep. So with that said, stages of sleep and sculptors, okay? So there's 2 different types of sleep. Non-rapid eye movement sleep, which literally means the eyes aren't rapidly moving, so they've done studies on this. And REM sleep, they open the eyes are going crazy on rapid eye movement sleep. And that's a Greek, I forget who that is, but I did know. Anyway, he looks like he's having fun. And rapid eye movement sleep, which is dream sleep, okay? So I put the sculpture next to it because non-rapid eye movement sleep, when you think about it, it's like, Brunelleschi, I think, is a sculptor. You have to research that. If you take a big piece of clay and you're trying to make the David. Who made the David? Michelangelo? Yeah. You should know this.
Yep, finally.
Yeah. So phone a friend. So it would be like Michelangelo taking big slabs of the clay or whatever they're using, granite, away from the sculptor that they envision. That's non-rapid eye movement sleep. It's the biggest chunk of taking away. Rapid eye movement sleep is like polishing his chest and making the hair nicer. Okay? When you think about it. Make sense? Which one is more important? Trick question. No, they're both very important. But they both actually have indications for morbidities that are associated with them, given time, given age, etc. So again, non-rapid eye movement sleep, stages 1 and 2 is lighter stages of sleep. 3 and 4 is deeper restorative stages of sleep. Okay? Yeah, I have a note in here. Stage 2 importance is refreshes brain to further learning the next day. Stage 2 increases later in the night, so the sleep gain later in the night is likely important for this. Deep sleep important. It saves new memories learned the day before and preserves them for long term. So probably really important for learning new skills or studying. When you lose REM sleep, this can cause increased mental health problems such as anxiety, depression, and suicidality. So we go through these stages throughout the night. We actually cycle them every 90 minutes. So when you first start going to sleep, you're in stages 1, stages 2, stages 3, stages 4, and then you go into REM, and you go back out 4, 3, 2, 1, and you go 2, 3, 4 REM, and you go back through this night after night after night, or hopefully after night. Interestingly enough, does anybody know how sleep is defined? Like what defines sleep? No. Don't worry, I didn't either.
Lower blood pressure and lower body temperature?
Yes. Do you have a question? Oh, I didn't know. And so they don't actually have like a full definition of it because it's interesting. REM sleep actually has the same brain waves for when you're awake. So I wanted to put it up here, but I couldn't find one that blocked it out. So if you look at non-REM sleep, right, non-rapid eye movement sleep, it looks like this. It looks like small, little, up and down like that, okay? Or waking rather looks like this. Very, 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 very high frequency, very, very small. Non-rapid looks like this in 1, 2, 3, and 4 is very slow. And then REM actually looks like waking. It looks like this, like scribble. So you wouldn't even be able to tell the difference. Lack of muscle tone happens. You're basically, they would give an example like, if we come into the house and you don't hear us, you must be asleep. We just assume that. We don't know what stage of sleep you're in. I mean, if they have the EEG on, they would. But it's interesting that, yeah, sleep is not like clearly defined as like a set of circumstances. We just know you're asleep. Okay, so non-rapid eye movement and REM. So non-REM fosters information transfer and distillation of memories. REM, integration, interconnecting raw ingredients with each other with past experiences, building more accurate models of how the world works, including insights and problem-solving abilities, and it paralyzes the body, okay? So for our waking state is reception, non-rapid eye movement sleep is reflection, and REM is integration. REM is where dreams occur, okay? So non-rapid eye movement sleep is 75% of the night. As we begin to fall asleep, we enter non-REM, and then REM is 25% of the night. It occurs about 90 minutes in and then recycles itself over and over again. And the brain is active and dreams occur. The eyes are darting back and forth, and the body becomes immobile, relaxed as muscles are turned off. Okay? Is anybody like a light sleeper? They define themselves? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. If somebody whispers, then in like 2 houses down, Z would hear it. I don't know how. Anybody like a real deep sleeper? Like deep sleeper?
No, I'm more of a light sleeper.
Yeah, I could have a bomb go off.
Like an earthquake slow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm the same way.
Only in the beginning.
Only in the beginning.
Only in the beginning.
Yeah,
After the
yeah. And then it's fragmented, right? Getting up. Yeah. So as we get older, sleep fragmentation does occur more frequently. So REM dominates early in life. Now again, when you think about it, it should be dominating early in life because it's trying to, again, incorporate all the necessary components of you getting adequate sleep. And for the most part, babies, I don't have any babies, but how many hours a night are a baby sleep when they're first born?
Not enough.
Stop. They're asleep they're asleep all the time.
Yeah.
Like, don't come in, the baby's asleep.
And if not, they should sleep.
Yeah, so the baby is asleep for a large portion of the time. And it dominates the whole half of her life. Now, think about, what do you think dominates the later part as we get into earlier life? Well, I said it, non-REM becomes 75% of it. And then when we get older, sleep just starts to deteriorate, we lose REM, and we lose non-REM. So, again, think about the cycle of life. We're crawling, we're walking, and then we're just like, we're getting closer to Earth. That's such a nice thing, come on. An infant brain without sleep will be a brain forever under-constructed. Yes. So again, research it. Did I cite? Oh yeah. Oh, it's on here as well. So we talk about, there's links with autism, there's links with anxiety disorder, food suppression, food caloric overconsumption, etc. All of these things start as soon as the mother is pregnant and facilitating a birth. So again, if the baby doesn't sleep, grows up in an environment that doesn't allow it to sleep, well, you're going to have a lot of health consequences later on. Autism children show a 30 to 50% reduction in deficit of REM sleep than children without. So think about that. Sleep is actually a causal indication for possibility of autism occurring in the child, whether it's genetic or a Zeitgeber, which means the environment is not allowing this child to sleep. Alcohol suppresses REM sleep. Okay, this is in adults. Less REM sleep, you're likely to wake up feeling groggy and unfocused. I'll talk about alcohol in a second. Pregnant mothers this is the most interesting one. Pregnant mothers having consumed alcohol disrupts unborn infant breathing from normal rate of 381 per hour to 4 per hour. 381 breaths per hour to 4 per
That's
hour.
crazy.
And that's in acute maternal alcohol consumption disrupts behavioral state organization in the near-term fetus in '98, so almost 20 years ago. Breastfeeding mothers that regularly consume alcohol as well create a 20 to 30% reduction of REM sleep. So it's no, now we know why the women were trying to protest prohibition, or they weren't protesting, they were actively engaged in prohibition. They just wanted us to sleep. No more alcohol to sleep. Why can't I sleep? What do we tell ourselves?
Answers.
I'm too stressed. I drank too much water the night before. What else?
Looking at my phone.
What is it? Oh, yeah, looking at my phone. That's a good one, actually. Yeah, for sure. Hot. Yeah. No, heat, temperature, all those things actually occur. So there's 5 reasons why, there might be others, but these are the main ones why you can't sleep, okay? Lights, temperature, caffeine, alcohol, and time cards. Okay? So, lights. Bedside lamps, even a dim light of 8 to 10, that's lumens, has been shown to delay release of melatonin. Remember? Start the race. A subtly lit living room in the hours before bed, being 1 to 2% the strength of daylight, will reduce 50% of the melatonin suppressing influence on the brain. So even with the light on, right, like a small bedside lamp, you are reducing your melatonin output from the pineal gland into the bloodstream. And that's a dim light. If you have an LED, man, well, if you don't know already, we're gonna hand out the sheets. Definitely download or put that night shift on. LEDs, iPads, computers, laptops, TVs, usage before bed, delayed melatonin release up to 3 hours before bed. Lead to loss of REM, feeling sleepier with evening lag of 90 minutes in melatonin rise. So you're giving yourself an extra hour and a half, possibly 3 hours of actually getting to bed because you were on your phone, at 8, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night looking at it. And it's going to disrupt, again, actually disrupt your REM sleep. So when it's actually disrupting your REM sleep, you're mollifying the brain of, getting the beard done just like the sculptor is not actually occurring. Okay? So that's one reason. Alcohol. Okay? So alcohol is a sedative. It inhibits the prefrontal cortex. Man, this prefrontal cortex must have been really important, right? It's sedative, but I wrote sedative, but I'm more fun. So people, it inhibits your decision making, right? You're more fun to do what you want. Well, I'm always fun. So the result of sedation of the prefrontal cortex controls impulse and restrains behavior, but it's actually destroying your sleep because a lot of people believe that by taking alcohol and drinking alcohol, you're going to sleep more soundly. True, very true. It does sedate you and it gives you that lull into sleep, but it does not keep you asleep. Okay? It's not a natural sleep. It's similar to taking a sleeping pill, which I'll talk about in a bit. The brain waves show it is more akin to a light form of anesthesia. So they've done, again, more research on this, where, again, they're measuring the EEG and the brain waves. So the brain waves are similar to you being under, for surgery. So it's not a real sleep. It's like, again, a chemically induced state of sleep that is not performing the function of restoring the body. Does that make sense? Okay. Alcohol fragments sleep with bouts of wakefulness. REM suppression, when the body metabolizes alcohol, it produces aldehydes and ketones. Aldehydes, blocks the brain's ability to generate REM. So that's why. I'm no fun, right? Don't drink. No lights before bed. I live in a cave. Temperature. The core temperature needs to decrease by 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit or 1 degree Celsius in order for your body to be signaled that it's time to sleep. So the suprachiasmatic nucleus actually will tell, based on the sun, based on the light dimming, that it's time now to initiate sleep. And your core body temperature, I think you had said it earlier, actually starts to decrease. So you may feel a little bit colder at night or hotter, right? Too cold is better than too hot. Why? Your body needs to be colder in order to sleep. Again, with that study I referenced earlier, Kleitner and Richardson, when they were in that cave, their body temperature went down 2 to 3 degrees, even in the cave, which itself was cold. Any questions? The cells responsible for this sit next to the suprachiasmatic nucleus and signal sleep. Tell me. Limb rebellion contributes to staying asleep. I put that up there because you've had, well, most of us have had kids in here, except myself. But you know, like when you wake up and you're like this, or like the babies are just like all over the place. The sheets are all over them. That's limb rebellion. So they're actually trying to cool themselves at night. I wanted to put a photo up here, but I couldn't fit it in. Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I'm like,
Is that when my socks come
I'm
on?
like, what? Yeah. No, that's because Brian does it. It's like, let me hit her in the foot. So 65 degrees is the ideal temperature. 65 in here right now. So if you want to sleep, let's go for it. A hot bath is actually contributes to 10 to 15% more deep non-rapid eye movement sleep, because as you have a hot bath, your body, when we have a hot bath, we think that our bodies become hotter, but they become hotter because your sense receptors feel the heat, but what then happens is your body wants to what? Cool. So then we go to sleep. You guys are the best crowd. I cited a research on here, Raymond and Van Summeren. Diminished capability to recognize the optimal temperature for sleep initiation may contribute to poor sleep in elderly people. Oh yeah, so they did research, that's why. They did research on even the elderly, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and they did a...
Elderly is 60s?
And last time I checked, if you have an AARP card, no. So they did what is it called? Wetsuits. So they had these adults, elderly adults, put on a wetsuit, and they actually had like these. You ever see radiant heat when it goes to the floor? Yeah. So they actually in the suit it goes through like that, and they actually filtered cold water through it, and they actually improved their sleep by 10 to 15%, which is insane. So it just shows that how cool their bodies actually need to be in order to sleep. So I thought that was so interesting. Alarm clocks, okay? So, it's probably the worst thing that we're doing right in the morning, right? So we have the sympathetic nervous system, and we have parasympathetic nervous system. Sympathetic system is fight or flight. Parasympathetic system is rest and digest. So what do you think is happening the first thing in the morning when we hear like, we're like, somebody here? So our sympathetic nervous system is going bonkers. Like,
It doesn't even wake you up.
well,
It wakes me up.
but my alarm is like this. It's like a soft melody, and then we're just like, are we in like?
Yeah,
field
are we
of
in
lilies?
heaven? Yeah.
So it artificially awakening spikes your blood pressure and your cortisol and your heart rate from sympathetic nervous system response. Okay. Snooze, you lose. So again, now that we're going to snooze it, and then we're going to hear the alarm again, we get into like a 5, 10 minute, 15 nap.
Never ever hit snooze.
Yeah.
That's the worst.
Yes,
I
it's
talk
actually
about that all the
destroying your
time.
body. Literally destroying your sympathetic nervous system and destroying cortisol levels, so that when you actually do want to snooze and you hear it again, well, it's just forcing your body to wake up unnaturally. Okay? So wake up once. That's the simple one. But again, there's plenty of things even on the iPhone now or any phone that you could just wake up with a little bit of a more less raucous noise. Perhaps somebody whispering in your ear, "You're gonna have a beautiful day today."
Actually, that was pretty awesome when we tried it. Instead of like having an alarm that like goes off half an hour earlier, like we schedule half an hour earlier, and it starts like speaking to you
That's the thing
as
with
you're
that
like
one.
waking
I
up.
think that was in
Yeah, and it was really nice. There's actually another thing that I saw, that there's a light that
Yeah.
turns on, like it's kind of like
You have that,
imitates
right?
the sunlight,
Yeah.
and it like
Joe has
turns
it.
on like
It will
slowly.
basically start to simulate daylight. So there's all these things that I've even listed on here. It starts to simulate daylight so that you wake up. They have these in places like, again, Alaska, or places that don't get sunlight. So it will keep you on that circadian rhythm, even though you will. It just, again, through the eyes, which is why we are sleeping, and the sleep pressure, seeing the light actually makes us want to sleep. So, why you should sleep? Weight, recovery, memory, and mental state. Okay, ooh, too late. So weight gain, I wrote here. Yeah, sleep and weight gain. That says 1.5 million results. So association between reduced sleep and weight gain in women. Recent weight gain in patients with newly diagnosed sleep obstructive sleep apnea. Short sleep duration and weight gain. Systematic review. Longitudinal association between sleep duration and subsequent weight gain. Impact of insufficient sleep on total daily energy expenditure, food intake, and weight gain. Believe me that sleep has something to do with weight gain? If not, I'm going to send it to a Google scholar. Lacking sleep, you experience multiple changes to your body that can lead to weight gain, okay? Your hormones become impaired. So sleep deprivation causes change to hormones that regulate hunger and appetite, which I spoke about earlier. The hormone leptin and ghrelin, okay, work in sync with each other. Leptin suppresses appetite and encourages the body to utilize its energy. Ghrelin triggers feelings of hunger. So which one do you think increases as a result of lack of sleep? Ghrelin increases as a lack of sleep. So
Which does what?
increases hunger. And
Oh.
in fact, it also increases hunger for super satisfying and satiating foods. So in the morning, that means when you wake up, you want to put a double scoop of sugar in there. You don't want to put 2 pieces of broccoli on your salad. Nope, that's not going to do it for you. Sleep deprivation changes what foods you're most interested in eating. Again, more junk food. Again, there's a litany of research on it. Recovery, along with dietary protein and to aid in muscle repair, we tend to forget that sleep is the best thing that we have going for us in terms of repair and recovery, right? That's why even on intake forms that for here, we'll ask right away, well, how much do you sleep? Because if you sleep, you exercising is not doing anything. If you exercise and you don't sleep, there is absolutely no reason to exercise and stress your body.
So you're
Repeat that.
saying I can't just recover by using CBD oil?
CBD oil is another marketing ploy to encourage that sleep can be increased as a result of it, which it might be minor, but again, your body naturally will go into sleep. But again, when we take away from the bank, if we're looking at it as a bank, which we shouldn't, you can't ever get the sleep back. So the normal function has to be there first and foremost, okay? So again, make it clear, if you exercise and you're not sleeping, you are not getting the full benefit of exercise. You will not. So during the stages of N3, and here's the other thing, if you're sleeping the 7-8 hours, but you're not getting deep sleep, like non-rapid eye movement 3 or non-rapid eye movement 4, and REM dream state, again, you're not getting the benefits of exercise because you are actually only doing light, latent sleep. There's a thing on applications like the Oura Ring and things like that that show sleep latency. That's how deep you sleep, okay? So if you're not sleeping deep, you're still not getting the benefit, okay? So it says during the non-3 rapid eye movement sleep, blood flow to your muscle increases, tissue growth and repair occurs. During REM, the muscles relax, which can help relieve tension and reduce symptoms of certain types of chronic pain. In fact, many of the critical restorative functions in the body, like tissue repair and muscle growth, occur mostly or only during sleep. In addition to muscle strength, muscle coordination improves with sufficient sleep. Basketball players who added 2 hours of sleep to their nightly routine experience a 5% increase in reaction time and speed on the court. So not only does it help you with motor control and endurance, it's also going to help you with reactive times. Okay? Do you guys know about truckers? Like they should keep track of their sleep? Okay. Well, you know that there's a large majority of them that actually lie about their sleep, and then what happens? Yeah, accidents. Memory, the most commonly recognized stage of memory is consolidation. The term memory refers to consolidation, refers to a process where memory becomes increasingly resistant to interferences from competing or disrupting factors of further practice through the simple passage of time. So memory usually gets enhanced from doing the thing that you're doing. It gets consolidated. So if my wife showed me how to code something, I'm like, oh, I got to do it again. I got to do it again, and then I learn how to do that through memory. It's just compounded through the experience. But what we really should understand is that if we're not also sleeping, it does not become active memory. It doesn't become actually utilizable. or ability to be utilized. They've done research on this, where they had students study names and do math problems, and they don't let them get non-rapid eye movement sleep, okay? So they let them sleep, and they just disrupt their sleep after that first cycle. So they only get REM, right? So what's happening is they're basically destroying their memory perceptibility to then the next day when they test them again on the math problems or the words that they memorized. People who actually were able to sleep the whole night and people who were actually fragmented with their sleep, again, who do you think performed better? Those who didn't have fragmented sleep. So, you know that there's nothing that memory doesn't, or sleep doesn't enhance.
So are you saying all-nighters is a bad idea before
Yeah,
an exam?
that's one thing I've never done. That's one thing I've never done in school.
You never did an all-nighter before
Never,
an exam?
even to now. I think the latest I've slept has to be like 1. And that was just my sister's birthday because it's on New Year's. And that was like 8 years ago.
I didn't do all nights for exam.
Terrible.
All nights for going out.
All right, so depression, the link between sleep and mood.
I
has
took
been
him out
seen-
one night, and it was like really late. He slept on the table. I
Oh
was
my
like, that's
God.
it.
Yeah.
And it was
That's
all
fun.
music, and I was like, what?
One time, my
That's
mom took me
hysterical.
to a Backstreet Boys concert. Well, my sisters, I have 3 older sisters. We were at a Backstreet Boys concert, and she'll tell you, you can see her in the morning. Oh yeah, you'll see her. She literally, Linda, held my ears like this, and she said I was sleeping on the chairs in Madison Square Garden. I was like, that probably sounds right. So anyway, I'll finish the next slides up kind of quickly. Okay, sleep and mood destruction. Obstructive sleep apnea. 19,000 people with obstructive sleep apnea were 5 times as likely to suffer from clinical depression. So again, we're not getting our bodies adequate rest. Our bodies then rebel against us, and we feel depressed. Whether or not these go along with environmental factors of feeling groggy, feeling sleepy, feeling annoyed, aggravated, our diets, weight gain, what do you think all those are symptoms that will contribute to depression, right? The relationship between sleep and mood is complex because disrupted sleep can lead to emotional changes or anxiety, but these conditions can also compound or further disrupt sleep. So then the depression disrupts the sleep, and the sleep disrupts the depression, so it's a terrible cycle back and forth. The last 5 or 6 slides are on some things that I thought sharing about. So pills to solve an ill. Any questions thus far? Sorry if I'm going a little quick. I want to make sure you guys get to the rest of your day. So 10 million people are taking sleeping pills a month, which I thought was insane. Diazepam, you remember this pill back in the day? Okay.
Yeah.
Back in the day. Yeah. I was like, when I was researching, I'm like, I think, but there's still similar variations of it. But that was one of the main. I think it's still out. I'm not
It's
sure.
definitely still out.
Okay. Yeah, you're at the site.
Definitely.
And
Overdose,
Lorazepam
Ambien,
Lorazepam
stuff.
Is that Valium?
No,
It's a type.
It's
a
Valium.
Yeah.
It's a Valium.
Anything with the am.
Mother's little helper.
Yeah. So it sedates you rather than assist you,
Yes.
just like alcohol. Okay. Sleeping pills target the same receptors that alcohol does by knocking out your brain's cortex. Okay. Ambien or Lunesta cannot produce large, deep brain waves. Additionally, it slows reaction time, motor skills, forgetfulness, next day grogginess, partial amnesia. I'm not sure if you know people who take these.
I know a whole bunch of them.
Okay, well, I know.
Because of where I work.
Let's
They get
say.
in their car and they drive around the neighborhood
Yes.
while they're in the middle of
So
sleeping.
that is absolutely true. I've worked with numerous clients that they wake up in the morning and they're like, I apparently like destroyed my TV and like my bed. And they're like, my kitchen looked crazy in the morning. I'm like,
Yeah,
wait,
they
before
eat
you went
in
to
the
bed, it
middle
was
of the night.
yeah. So it's wild. You're literally sleepwalking.
Yeah.
Rebound insomnia, when stopped, you'll suffer far worse sleep. So when you stop them, your brain becomes so dependent upon it that you cannot sleep. Then what happens?
Depression.
No, not depression, but you would double the dose.
Oh.
And then you become so dependent upon it that you need 2 times the amount to sleep.
You're not supposed to take it every
Depression.
day. That's the one mistake people make.
People take it every day.
You're not supposed to.
No, I know. So here's the interesting thing. There's no difference between the placebo and the sleeping pill.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
research on this. No joke. It's crazy. Okay. I just had to share this. Those using sleeping pills are more likely to die and develop cancer than those not. So those taking sleeping pills were 4.6 times more likely to die over a 2.5-year period than those who were not using. Frequency of usage increased death rate as well to 5.3 times. Even occasional user, 18 per year, were still 3.6 more times likely to die at some point in the 2.5-year period. Could be because of infection. Sleep doesn't allow for immune system restoration. Fatal car accidents. There's 30 to 4% more likely to develop cancer. So that is insane. Like, maybe I think it's insane. Costs of sleep. Okay? Insufficient sleep, tell this to Cuomo, costs $2,000 per employee, okay? Per year in lost productivity. It's $3,500 per employee in those suffering the most serious lack, okay? So we think about nurses. I know you were just talking about this and sent the email. As a nation, it costs American, and Japan $411 billion for us and $138 billion per year, respectively. So we are a nation that does not know how to sleep. It's costing us not only our lives, but taxpayer dollars. People going to the emergency rooms. People going with bad teeth. Employees are less creative, less happier, lazier, less motivated, more likely to lie, create havoc for other employees, blame other employees for their mistake, not be team players, and social loafing, meaning fewer task completion in the group. And this is why, because we're destroying our prefrontal lobe, okay, or our frontal lobe, and we are not willing to, again, engage in the surrounding environment or be happy about what we're doing. Social loafing means if we were in a group environment together and I had 3 hours sleep, I'm just going to do like the bare minimum to get by so that the group can, succeed. So when you do group projects, be like, who slept 6 hours? All right, none of my group. Okay, a couple more things. Can't teach an old dog new tricks. So what happens as we get older? First is the reduction in the quantity and the quality of the sleep. That stage that beneficially overhauls your cardiovascular, immune, and metabolic system, refreshes learning and memory. As you enter your 30s and 40s, your deep sleep brain waves become smaller, less powerful, and fewer in number. Reductions in deep sleep quality increase your risk of heart attacks, obesity, and stroke, as well as the buildup of the toxic brain protein called beta amyloid that's linked to Alzheimer's. So again, when you sleep, beta amyloid actually dissipates from the brain. When you don't sleep, beta amyloid actually increases in the brain, which has been linked to a type of dementia, which is Alzheimer's. Passing into your mid to late 40s, age will have stripped you of 60 to 70% of the deep sleep that you were enjoying. By the time you reach 70, you will have lost 80 to 90% of your youthful restorative deep sleep.
You're trying to depress us.
No, I'm just telling you. But with that said, it does happen. So when you think about the percentages, right, it just means the quality of that sleep too. So here it comes. Fragmentation is the biggest one. Because the deep sleep that you have when you're a kid, if you're sleeping for teens should be sleeping for 9.5 hours, like I'm going to talk about. So now you're going to be sleeping like 6. So that's the reduction that we're talking about. But fragmentation is greater. Most sleep doctors consider good quality sleep to involve an efficiency of 90% or more. By the time we reach our 80s, sleep efficiency has fallen below 80%, means that within an 8-hour period, you will probably spend an hour and a half awake, okay? That does not mean you won't be asleep. You will be asleep, but you might be tossing and turning, not necessarily knowing that you're awake. And the circadian rhythm is off. I'm just gonna do this last one, then we'll be done, okay? So, teens, their circadian rhythms, I did this because I want maybe you'll tell other people, teenagers have a different circadian rhythm than us, all right? We're destroying them by making them get up early in the morning for school. I mean that. Literally destroying
No more
them.
school for them.
No, but so a teen's circadian rhythm actually is allowing them to stay up later, and they need to get up later. Why? Because back when we were on the prairie, right, in Africa, or wherever we believe we came from, think about when you had kids and the parents went to sleep, what do you think the kids did? They started to actually experience and encounter things on their own that they don't have to be dependent upon with their parents. So that means kids are going to be up social networking. Whether you agree with it or not, they are. They might be out with their friends late because they're actually encouraging their own decision-making ability to encourage development of prefrontal lobe. So kids actually want to go to bed at 10 o'clock and they want to wake up at 8 or 6 instead of 5 o'clock in the morning. For a teen to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, that would be like all of us in here getting up at 3. And I am not getting up at 3. I already go to bed at 8:30. 3 is way too early, but that's what it's like for them. So now think about them getting up at that point where their frontal cortex and the frontal lobe is not actually on for the first 3 periods until lunchtime, where they're like, oh my God, we gotta calm these kids down. They're going crazy. So, yeah, would you be cheerful? We're bankrupting teens, REM sleep, and it has lasting effects on their life. So, in Edina, Minnesota, they had the start time an hour later. And guess what happened to the SAT scores that whole year? There was a 212-point increase in the SATs for all students, and on average. They were in addition, there was a 60% reduction in car accidents for 16 to 18-year-olds in Teton County, Wyoming, and in Minnesota, and in Teton County, Wyoming, it led to a 70% reduction in car accidents. Adderall and Ritalin that kids are on, that they claim that they need to be on, might be linked to lack of sleep. Because what happens when you're on Adderall and Ritalin, it prevents sleep. It doesn't encourage sleep. It makes them more focused. But what would actually help them be focused? Possibly sleep. So we think that ADHD is a possible precursor or result of sleep loss and sleep deprivation. And so they call it child obstructive sleep apnea, masquerading as ADHD due to adenoids and tonsils, which block airway, right? And then cause the brain to wake up, which creates sleep deprivation. Do you get that point? Children who have adenoids and tonsils can be reduced sleep due to the fact that their sleep is, they're trying to catch their breath. And then what happens in the morning? I'm so tired, I need something to focus. They brought to a doctor and then they're given a pill. When the doctor's like, what time did you wake up? 70% of parents believe their children are getting enough sleep, when in reality, 25% of 11 to 18-year-olds are obtaining the necessary amount of sleep. And last thing, research in the 60s, when researchers interrupted teens during the sleep, which they were beginning REM cycle and required to perform math problems for 5 to 10 minutes. By the 3rd day, participants were showing signs of psychosis. They were anxious, moody, and started to hallucinate. They were hearing and seeing things that were not real and started to become paranoid of the researchers. Crazy, right? Last thing I'm just going to tell you is takeaways, which you guys have. They did Guinness Book of World Records proposed an idea of keeping somebody up for a long period of time, and they canceled it right after like 7 days because it will kill you. Yeah, because it will kill you. Yeah. Yep. And sleep torture doesn't work. Sleep torture doesn't work because people will say anything on that. Any questions? I know you guys want to run. Sorry.
That's it.